Recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are in the situation where there have been some suggestions with respect to amendments to the Dangerous Substances Bill. And they are going to take some little time for the legislative drafts persons to make the necessary amendments. And so rather than interrupt the flow of the House's business, I am proposing that we suspend Standing Order 49-1 to enable the committee stage of the bill to be deferred, and that we proceed with the other business on the order paper in the interim. I expect by sometime tomorrow the changes that are being proposed will be ready, and we can then, the House can then resolve itself into committee, and we can take the committee stage of the bill. And so I propose, I move the suspension of Standing Order 49-1 for purposes mentioned.
The question is that Standing Order 45-1 be suspended. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Accordingly, Standing Order 49-1 is hereby suspended. Madam Clerk.
Motions. Government motion number 7, 2015-16, membership of the Public Accounts Committee. Third readings, the Legal Aid Bill 2015.
Recognize the Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill with a short title, the Legal Aid Bill 2015, be given a third reading and pass.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Legal Aid Bill 2015 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Legal Aid Bill 2015 has been given a third reading.
The Public Management and Finance Amendment Bill 2015, third reading.
I recognize the Honorable Minister responsible for Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable I beg to move that the bill for a law to amend the Public Management and Finance Law 2013 revision be given a third reading and passed. Thank you.
The question is that the bill shortly entitled the Public Management and Finance Amendment Bill 2015 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Public Management and Finance Amendment Bill 2015 has been given a third reading and is passed.
Motions. Government motion number 7 in 2015-16, membership of the Public Accounts Committee, to be moved by the Honorable Premier, Minister of Home Affairs, Health and Culture.
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move Government Motion Number 7 of 2015-2016, membership of the Public Accounts Committee.
The motion has been duly moved and is open for debate. Does the Honorable Premier wish to speak thereto?
Madam Speaker, the motion. Whereas paragraph 1 of Standing Order 77 provides there shall be a standing select committee to be styled the Public Accounts Committee to consider reports of the Auditor General, A, on the accounts of the government, B, on such other accounts required to be laid before the House as the committee may think fit, and C, on any matter incidental to the performance of his duties or the exercise of his powers as the committee may think fit. Unquote. And whereas the current Public Accounts Committee, in this motion referred to as the committee, was elected on Wednesday, 29th of May 2013, and comprised the second elected member for Georgetown, Mr. Roy McTaggart, as chairman, leader of the opposition and first elected member for West Bay, the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, as deputy chairman, the fourth elected member for West Bay, Captain Eugene Ebanks, the fifth elected member for Georgetown, Mr. Winston C. Connolly Jr., and the sixth elected member for Georgetown, Mr. Joseph X. Hugh. And whereas paragraph 2 of Standing Order 80 authorizes the House to revoke the appointment of a member to a standing select committee and appoint another member in his place. And whereas paragraph 4 of Standing Order 80 provides that, quote, a member of a standing select committee may resign from that committee by tendering his resignation to the presiding officer, whereupon the House may appoint another member to fill the vacancy, unquote. And whereas the second elected member for Georgetown tendered his resignation from the committee as chairman to the presiding officer on 2nd of October 2015, be it therefore resolved that in accordance with paragraph 4 of Standing Order 80, the Legislative Assembly accepts the resignation of the second elected member for Georgetown as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, and be it further resolved that the Legislative Assembly revokes the appointment of the leader of the opposition and first elected member for West Bay from the Public Accounts Committee, and be it further resolved that the Legislative Assembly appoints the elected member for Northside as a member and chairman of the committee, and the second elected member for Georgetown as deputy chairman of the committee.
The motion has been duly moved and is open for debate. Does the Honorable Premier wish to further speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, by this motion, we are proposing to remove the leader of the opposition from the Public Accounts Committee and to add the elected member from North Side. In addition, we are proposing to accept the resignation of the second elected member for Georgetown as chairman of the committee, and in his stead, to appoint the member for North Side as the new chairman of the committee, bringing in an opposition member, which is in line with convention. Madam Speaker, this motion has become necessary because the leader of the opposition has, over the past year or so, consistently made derogatory statements regarding the integrity and professionalism of the former Auditor General and his office. Our concern is that those statements demonstrate the inability of the Leader of the Opposition to consider the reports and oversight of the Office of the Auditor General with any sense of objectivity. We are even more concerned now that the committee is about to consider the Auditor General's report on the Nation Building Fund, which was created by the Leader of the Opposition when he was Premier and the fund was managed by his office. Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition's involvement in and interference with the committee's work has made it difficult for the committee to effectively engage with the Auditor General and exercise its constitutional mandate in examining government's use of public resources. These concerns are not new and have been raised in the past and reported in the media. In a June 2014 letter to the Leader of the Opposition, the Chair of the committee asked the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to take leave from the committee and allow the Legislative Assembly to elect another member of the opposition who could and would act in an objective and unbiased manner. The Leader of the Opposition has refused to resign, and his ongoing interference has caused the committee to not be able to function as it is required. Madam Speaker, the country is well aware that the Leader of the Opposition has a history of bad blood with the Office of the Auditor General, and the contention has not been limited only to the one that has just recently left Cayman. Indeed, a 29th of August 2011 report in the Caymanian Compass outlines a statement from the Leader of the Opposition in which he blasted the former Acting Auditor General, Garnet Harrison, who was about to look into the Nation Building Fund, calling him, quote, a hitman, unquote. Also in that same Compass report is the story that the then Governor Duncan Taylor, in a press statement, had cautioned the now Leader of the Opposition to exercise restraint and said it was unacceptable for the then Leader of Government to make personal attacks on the Auditor General. And according to a 28th of June 2012 Hansard report, page 70, Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition said in respect of another report by the Auditor General, quote, Madam Speaker, I know I am more targeted and I know I am more in jeopardy. Every one of them knows what the agenda is. They know the geopolitics that are being played, but they sit down and grin. They brown-nose the FCO and the Auditor General and the Governor sometimes when they choose, unquote. In that same session of the Legislative Assembly, on the 28th of June 2012, the Hansard report on page 79, the now Leader of the Opposition continued in this same paranoid vein, saying, quote, the aim and objective is not to get Alden McLaughlin. The aim and objective is to embarrass McKeever Bush and his government. That is the aim and objective, unquote. And further, Madam Speaker, according to the 23rd of August 2012 Hansard report on page 205, when speaking of government loans, the Leader of the Opposition said, quote, the Auditor General was jumping down the throat of the civil servant before they could get anything started. And he was in the papers every Monday morning criticizing somebody, making it look like the whole world, the whole government was corrupt or everybody was falling down, unquote. Madam Speaker, I'm sure there are more instances when the now Leader of the Opposition castigated the office of the Auditor General while he was in charge of government. But now that he is not, his tirade against not only the office, but the Auditor General himself has ratcheted up. Just last year, on 26th of June 2014, according to the Hansards of this House on page 249, he called the Auditor General, quote, tongue-twisting, unquote, in a 12th September 2014 Hansard on page 411. He said the Auditor General, quote, cannot tell the truth when he needs to tell the truth, unquote. And Madam Speaker, on 15th of January this year, Cayman News Service ran a story in which the now leader of the opposition accused the Auditor General's office of nastiness, misinformation, and false representation, saying that reports written about the accounting of his administration were spiteful. And Madam Speaker, only a few months ago, on 14th of August, in another Cayman News Service report, the now leader of the opposition threatened to sue the Auditor General and anyone else who published the details of the nation-building audit report, calling it a witch hunt and a means to damage him. Madam Speaker, this is just a sampling of the leader of the opposition's castigation of the Auditor General and the office of the Auditor General. As responsible stewards of this country, this administration, unlike the leader of the opposition, welcomes the scrutiny of the Office of the Auditor General. When he brings to light issues that need to be addressed, we do not slag him off, but we put our noses to the grindstone, seek to address the issues, and make them right. And it is because of our good stewardship, Madam Speaker, that the Auditor General's office is now able to see how government is managing its projects and improving the public accounts records. By removing the leader of the opposition from the Public Accounts Committee and naming the member from Northside as its chairman, we are ensuring the people of the Cayman Islands that the committee will continue to be fair and balanced and to again be able to get on with its work. Regrettably, as the leader of the opposition has refused to take up the invitation to resign, it is felt best to allow the Legislative Assembly to make the needed changes so as to enable the committee to better meet its charge to examine the public accounts of the Cayman Islands and the accounts and financial dealings of all authorities, offices, and departments of government, of all courts, and of all government-owned companies. Madam Speaker, this administration is committed to doing what is right, doing it transparently, and working for the greater good of the Cayman Islands and our people. This change to the Public Accounts Committee is further evidence of that commitment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition?
Madam Speaker, as a legislature, we have been operating, functioning by the same conventions and practices that the House of Commons and the Commonwealth Parliaments or legislatures operate. The PAC has always operated as such, as closely as possible, Madam Speaker, in these islands. The PAC committee has always operated with opposition members on it and leading it. In the Commonwealth, when a government loses the election and the PAC is formed, the members are chosen in a balanced manner. The chairman comes from the official opposition, not necessarily the leader of the opposition, just someone from them that knows the system or has accounting background, all the better. But government, Madam Speaker, has a majority of members, as they do today in our PAC. However, Madam Speaker, none of those members would be ministers or be junior ministers who sit in cabinet at times, or members who is associated with policy development and application, to the extent we see those members with it here in our island. In the Cayman Islands here, we have sensibly followed the same practice and convention of parliamentary government as it is carried on by the Parliament in the United Kingdom and parliaments and legislatures throughout the Commonwealth. Madam Speaker, at the swearing in of this new assembly on the 29th of May 2013, the Hansard records what happened on that day with the election of the members of the new pact. Madam Speaker, I listened intently, wondering what next, coming from the Premier, who, Madam Speaker, will say anything at any time and twist anything at any time, what I have termed say anything, twist everything. Madam Speaker, I'm not going to dwell on this thing about the Auditor General because I have a motion coming. That's if they don't stop me from bringing it, where I can deal with the works of the Audit Office. And Madam Speaker, to say that bad blood, no, Madam Speaker, McKeever Bush don't hate nobody, not even to the Premier, who has said some of the worst things that could be said and has attacked me, I think, more than anybody else that I ever come across politically. He is desperately trying to get me out of the way, Madam Speaker, but I don't need a PAC committee to deal with him. I can deal with him. But he's a hypocrite, and I will tell you why. I can't say that, I can say something worse. You can't tell the truth either. You twist it where you want to. Madam Speaker, the bad blood that existed, if he calls it that, he calls it even a paranoid vein, is because I recognize what is going on in this country and what has gone on. The Auditor General, he can talk about the good of his government. Auditor General never performed nothing on your government, so you can say that. Tell me which account. A member came here some time ago and could say, the Deputy Governor knows, Madam Speaker, that one of his chief officers told him, because they told me and they told him, that what the Auditor General was saying in the report was not true. The chief officer now for the Ministry of Education, that he had made remarks that I had had something to do with it, and he said that he told the Auditor General, sir, that is not true. You can't say that. And when the Auditor General put it in his report, he went to the Deputy Governor and reported it. He told the Deputy Governor. The Auditor General definitely was here to do a job and to get a job. He got a job. He did his job. Done it here. He did the work here. Now he's gone without information, all that he can carry in his back pocket, and who else knows what else. Because there's so many of them agents around here that you wouldn't know how to sweep the yard sometime unless they was taking a picture of it. But he came here to do a job, came here to make civil servants look as bad as possible, some of them, And of course, me being the person that I am and who stood up to them on more than one occasion, yes, Madam Speaker, I was the target. That same Auditor General and Duncan Taylor. And I'm going into it, Madam Speaker. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. When they go before the court will know that they've done before. I hate nobody, thank God. I sleep good. Willing to forgive, forget. You hit me now, I can laugh at you later. But I can't take a liar. And I can't take, Madam Speaker, when people I know is deliberately doing something to hurt this country and hurting me, hurting the country. That's what he was doing. That Auditor General made us stop from taking a loan for 3 or 2%, for 5-point-something%, $50-odd million more in interest over 10 years. He told me I could get that loan from anybody next door. He said if I walk outside on the street. You don't hear nothing about that, Madam Speaker. You don't hear anything about that, but it's on record. It forms part of the history. No, I did not like how he operated, Madam Speaker, because he couldn't tell the truth. He also, Madam Speaker, took strong objection to me because I took a strong objection to him and the way he operated. I didn't become part of the Public Accounts Committee, Madam Speaker, for him to send me long statements of what questions I should ask. That's not for him to do. That's for me to look at the evidence and ask those questions. Not for him to write all these questions and say I must ask them. See, I'm here. I lay them on the table of the House. Loads of them. And that's how he operated. Mickey would don't kowtow to that. I get a report, Madam Speaker, and I ask the questions that I see is necessary.
So ordered.
That's how he operates. I don't operate that way, and as long as I've been associated with Public Accounts Committee, and mind you, Madam Speaker, at times I were not on them, but members at times chose to invite me to come in as a person, as a member of this House, and sit in and listen. That's what other public accounts used to do back in the 90s and early 80s, as far as I can remember from Esdale time. They would invite us in as members. He also didn't like me because, Madam Speaker, over the years, the Audit Office produces invoices of their expenditure, brings it here, 40,000, 20,000, 30,000, and we got to pay it. This time around, I said, no, you don't. It's not working that way. You have all of these bills for us. Tell me what you done with it. Who you hired in Cayman Brack? Which person you brought down from Canada and you now advertise it and you hire them? I want to know everything. And at times, I only voted for the amounts because people had to be paid. That's some of the reasons I wanted him to be accountable in the Public Accounts Committee. Thousands of dollars. Staff here know, so they hire them. They bring them here and they got to distribute them to us. 30,000 at one time, 25,000, 13,000, name it, 70,000, his expenses. They bring in their friends from the companies that they want to bring them in. Now I advertised it. This went on for years, of course. This time when I got in there, I said, no, you don't. But of course, people took affront to it, and I shouldn't handle him that way. Oh, no? Yet every civil servant that spends something is a question on it and trying to show their bad management, trying to show them up, trying to make the politician look like he spent something. He was no good because, Madam Speaker, there is a written apology to Gene Thompson Company from him. Don't question me on it. From him, what he said, Madam Speaker, about the projects of the Dart Company and the Sheriff Hospital, they got lawyers and went to him and say, you tell us where we're wrong, or you go into court. And he wrote an apology saying that he didn't find anything wrong. Him, good riddance. Strong winds at the back, keep going east. Madam Speaker, on the audits, my audits, I'm not concerned, Madam Speaker, about anything that he wanted to say. It's how he said it. And Madam Speaker, any program, any project, any work can be improved upon. Anything can be improved upon. I didn't mind that. It's the way he said it and the way he done. You heard me on the radio show with Mr. Howard Connor. No, loads of money spent. I gave them $750,000 for the old people home here in Georgetown. Now, heard nothing about that. You know why? You all know why? We gave them money for the scouting. Now ask them anything about accounts. Heritage Acts program, Madam Speaker. He said in this report there was no reporting, there was no accounts, nothing. Made look like that man didn't know what he was doing and that we were just giving away government money. And here are reports 2014, 2015, reports 2011, 2012. Madam Speaker, here they are. Reports continuing. He said there was no accounts. The man has the accounts. They went to him and he told them, see him here? He still wrote in there was none. He didn't know that I had kept my copies that they had sent me. He didn't know that. Look, he had a habit, he had a hit job to do, and that's what he done, to make as many people look bad as possible. We can't do this when the Constitution says we can. So go ahead, move me off, if that sweetens you. Not hurting me. It could be less meetings for me to attend to. Now the only thing I have to do is get on the radio more. But Madam Speaker, the hypocrisy of the Premier to come here and say by appointing an outside member, he's doing the right thing, will be better, things will be better, or managed better, or something, whatever the words he used. I have to read the Hansard now, Madam Speaker, and all of it. I hope you have that Hansard, Madam Speaker, of
What date?
Wednesday, the 29th of May, 2013. Nominations and election of members to the Standing Public Accounts Committee.
Yes, I have it.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, this is the nominations and election of members of the Standing Public Accounts Committee as I read it on Wednesday, the 29th of May, 2013, the official Hansard report. The Speaker, proceedings are resumed. The next order of business is the nomination of members of the Standing Public Accounts Committee. This standing committee that exists is by virtue of Standing Order 77. Therefore, there is no need for a motion to establish the said committee. First, I will ask the Honorable Premier to read the terms of reference of the Standing Public Accounts Committee. The Premier got up, Madam Speaker. I don't need to read that. That was the motion for the Standing Public Accounts and the Standing Orders. The Speaker, thank you, Honorable Premier. I will now take nominations for the Standing Public Accounts Committee. The committee shall be comprised of 5 members. I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Leader of the Opposition and first elected member for West Bay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the nomination of the second elected member for Georgetown, Mr. Roy McTaggart, to be the chairperson of the committee. The Speaker, is there a seconder? Mr. Bernie A. Bush, second elected member for West Bay, Madam Speaker. And of course, he is actually the third elected member for West Bay, but nevertheless, Madam Speaker, I beg to second the motion. And we nominated the member from Georgetown, the second member, because he was sitting over here. Wasn't too long that he skied out and went over there. No, the only thing that reminds me when you hook up a bay shot, you're going to ski that lap across the bay. Never mind, Madam Speaker. We nominated him. The Speaker, second elected member for Georgetown, do you accept the nomination? Mr. Roy M. McTaggart, second elected member for Georgetown, Madam Speaker. I'm delighted to, thank you. The Speaker, thank you. Are there any further nominations? The Premier, Honorable Alden McLaughlin Jr., Madam Speaker, I beg to nominate the following as members of the Public Accounts Committee. Fourth elected member for Bordentown, sixth elected member for Georgetown, first elected member for West Bay and Leader of the Opposition, first elected member for Bordentown. The Speaker, thank you. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition. Madam Speaker, just to make an inquiry. The Speaker, Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Bush, Leader of the Opposition. Is the government saying that they want the first elected member for Bordentown, the fourth elected member for Bordentown, and the sixth elected member for Georgetown? Those members, 3 members? The Speaker, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, I have the fourth elected member for Bordentown, the sixth elected member for Georgetown, the first elected member for West Bay and Leader of the Opposition, and the first elected member for Bordentown. Together with your nomination, the second elected member for Georgetown, comprising the 5 members of the PAC. Mr. Bush, Leader of the Opposition. Madam Speaker, I hear what the government is saying, and since I am not making a nomination, but rather I'm speaking to the nomination, we have talked about entering a new age, a new era, and we talked about the good governance we want and the good open transparency. I admit that there is nothing stopping government, as it has been normal for the governments to have 3 and 2. But I am wondering, having 3 and then there's 2 other members, that's what I meant. But I am wondering whether in the spirit that all seem to want to go in, we should not have one of the independent members as a member of the PAC. It is a very important committee, and I believe it would be a more balanced committee to have it that way. The Speaker. Honorable member, are you requesting the government to consult, or are you making a nomination in your own right? Leader of the Opposition. I would ask the government to relook at their proposals of the 3 members to have one of the independent members sit on the committee. There was an inaudible interjection. Leader of the Opposition, yes, inaudible interjections. The Speaker, Honorable Premier, pause. The Speaker, Honorable Premier, I recognize the first elected member for Bordentown. Honorable Anthony S. Eden, Deputy Speaker, first elected member for Bordentown. Madam Speaker, in light of what has transpired, I will decline the nomination. The Speaker, thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Premier, would you do the 5th nomination? The Premier, Honorable Alden McLaughlin Jr., Madam Speaker, I beg to nominate the 5th elected member for Georgetown. Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition. 5th, is that not the same thing? Not sitting on that side? No, 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 no. No, Madam Speaker. Let's be very clear and not play around. I'm speaking in regard to the member for Northside or the member for East End to make it a more balanced Public Accounts Committee to go forward. I still see the government as having 3 members. The member sits on the government side, and it seems to me that you cannot sit over there and be something else. I mean, you have to be fish or fowl. You cannot be both. And I certainly won't vote for that. The Speaker, Honorable Premier, the Premier, Honorable Alden McLaughlin Jr. Madam Speaker, we are prepared to be concessionary, but I think what the Honorable Leader of the Opposition is asking for really is expecting too much. The nomination stands. The Speaker, I recognize the 3rd elected member for West Bay, There was an inaudible interjection. The Speaker, okay, all right. If there are no more nominations, Leader of the Opposition, Madam Speaker, I beg to nominate the member for Northside to be a member of the Public Accounts Committee. The Speaker, is there a seconder? I recognize the second elected member for West Bay. Mr. Bernie A. Bush, Madam Speaker, I correctly said it this time. Sorry about the first time, ma'am. The Speaker, that's okay, Mr. Bernie A. Bush. I second the nomination of the member for Northside to be a member of the PAC. The Speaker, are there any other nominations? Does the member for Northside wish to accept the nomination? Mr. Diaz Miller, elected member for Northside. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Speaker. I will accept the nomination, and I beg to nominate the member for East End. The Speaker, is there a seconder? Mr. Roy McTaggart. Madam Speaker, I wish to second the nomination. The Speaker, members, are there more than 5 persons now? As there are more than 5 persons now nominated, it will take a few minutes for the clerk to prepare a ballot. We will suspend for 5 minutes. Please remain in your seats for the preparation of the ballots. There was a pause. The Speaker, they are checking the procedure about the appointment of scrutineers. That is why I momentarily left the chamber. I recognize that I need to ask the 6th elected member for Georgetown whether he accepts the nomination, as well as the member for East End. I will ask the 6th elected member for Georgetown whether or not he accepts the nomination. Mr. Joseph X. Hugh, 6th elected member for Georgetown. Madam Speaker, I humbly accept. The Speaker, thank you. Elected member for East End, do you accept the nomination? Mr. V. Arden McLean, elected member for East End. Madam Speaker, I accept the nomination. The Speaker, thank you. We will wait while the clerk brings in the ballots. Honorable members, out of an abundance of caution, does the second elected member for Georgetown accept the nomination? Mr. Roy M. McTaggart, yes, Madam Speaker. The Speaker, the 4th elected member for Bordentown, do you accept the nomination? Mr. Albert H. Saku Jr., 4th elected member for Bordentown. Madam Speaker, yes, I accept. The Speaker, the 1st elected member for West Bay, do you accept the nomination? Leader of the Opposition, Madam Speaker, yes, I do. The Speaker, I believe, have already checked with the 4th elected member for Bordentown. Point of clarification. Honorable Osborne B. Borden, Minister of Health, Sports, Youth and Culture. Madam Speaker, point of clarification. When we had the original change, I thought we moved to the 5th elected member for Georgetown instead of the 6th. The Speaker, Honorable Minister, I have 2nd elected member for Georgetown, 4th elected member for Bordentown, 6th elected member for Georgetown, 1st elected member for West Bay, 5th elected member for Georgetown, elected member for Northside, elected member for East End. The Speaker, I call on the 5th elected member for Georgetown. Do you accept the nomination, sir? Mr. Winston C. Connolly Jr., 5th elected member for Georgetown. Madam Speaker, I do accept it. The Speaker, I thank you. Long pause. The Speaker, honorable members, the ballot papers are now prepared and the ballot box is here. I'm going to ask the Sergeant if he would ensure that all members have an opportunity to look at the ballot box and ensure that it is free and clear. While he's doing that, we are also going to have 2 scrutineers, the official members of the House. We are going to ask the Deputy Governor and the Attorney General to come and take their positions, please. Once the Sergeant has completed the exercise, the ballot papers will be distributed and members may vote for no more than 5 members of the Public Accounts Committee. Once you have done that, I would recommend that you fold the paper and as the ballot box comes back around, place it in so as to maintain the secrecy of the ballot if that is your desire. The ballot box has now been locked. Addressing the Sergeant, please distribute. Out of an abundance of caution, I had better say that you can vote once per person. 1 person cannot get 5 votes. Pause. The Speaker, if members have completed the ballot, please indicate so that the Sergeant can collect it and we can do a tally. Long pause. The Speaker, order. The clerk wishes to conduct the conclusion of this. Thank you. At this time, I will ask the Honorable Clerk of the House to read the results. The clerk reading each ballot paper. And she saved some time, Madam Speaker. As you can see, what she did was to read out all the people and the votes that they had. The Speaker, thank you, scrutineers, for assisting the process. There was a pause. Now the results of the ballots. The Speaker, the result of the voting is as follows. Mr. Albert H. Saku, 14. Mr. Joseph X. Yu, 11. Honorable W. McKeown Bush, 13. Mr. Roy M. McTaggart, everybody voted for him, 17. Mr. Diaz at Miller, 7. Mr. V. Arden McLean, 8. Mr. Winston C. Connolly, Jr., 14. The Speaker, the members of the Public Accounts Committee is as follows. Mr. Albert H. Saku, Mr. Joseph X. Hugh, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Mr. Roy M. McTaggart, Mr. Winston C. Connolly, Jr. In accordance with the provision of Standing Order 70, Suborder 2, I nominate Mr. Roy M. McTaggart as the Chairman of the Standing Public Accounts Committee. Applause. Madam Speaker, I read that to say, how hypocritical can the Premier be? After going through all of this, rejecting the member from the outside, not only that, wouldn't stop at that, we went to vote, wouldn't have him on, couldn't have him on. Well, he said, I'm expecting too much. If you want him today, he accepted, so be it. No problem to me. I don't, if I was there, I would continue to do my job. I don't know what kind of excuse now you're going to come up with, because mind you, Madam Speaker, he can do that good. Find excuses of why he did something. But I can tell you, he didn't want him on then. Now, Madam Speaker, whatever they come with as an excuse, and the excuse presently is that me and the Auditor General couldn't make it. I castigated him. I never heard what I'd done wrong when he said I interfered. I can't see what interference I done. As the chairman never pointed out that I interfered. The only thing they ever done, Madam Speaker, was to try to stop me one day when I was making a statement explaining what the Auditor General had already made public. And the Speaker said the member has his right. Nobody ever showed me that I done any interference. My job is to get a report, look at it, scrutinize it, and if it is wrong, then I say it is wrong. If there are lies in it, I say it's a lie. If I figure that he's targeting somebody unnecessarily, then it is my job as a representative of the people to point that out. And I think that man done that several times, and he lied most of all. Lied. And lied too often. You can make mistakes, but lied too often. It shows, Madam Speaker, I know I have carried out my responsibility as I should. Examine the reports of the audit office, look at what he said, see who he has interviewed, see how he comes to his conclusions, and go according to the facts that I am aware of. That's my duty as a member. And at times, Madam Speaker, that man would say he interviewed the civil servant, and he didn't. And audit said that you must interview the person that's being accused, that at least the person that ran a program. If he made his recommendations, a fair recommendation for changes, well, we would accept them. As I said, Madam Speaker, I would, as anything can be improved upon, anything. And the recommendations that I thought was fair that he made, I agreed with. Where he's not fair, and there is a lot of that, far too much, where he picked who to slap up, and he picked who to give a blight to on fairness. I have a motion, Madam Speaker, where I intend to go into depth on the matters so that it is on record in this honorable House. And then all that audit office can know some things, and the people of this country can know some things. You hear what I say? They can know some things. They can find out why they do certain things and why they come after certain people. Well, their spouses work all over the place and carry on all kind of rackets. And you have to interfere, and you have to point your fingers, and you have to say, can't do it. Then they take a picture on you. Then they come after you. They cannot say, Madam Speaker, because I come and defend myself, that I'm not supposed to. That if I wasn't here as a member, then the PAC has to call me in and say, talk to me about this. This is the report. Is this true? And they can ask their questions. That's what the PAC would do. I would have to defend my position. I would have to explain. And that's what I've done with him. But it's because I got, in one of the reports, I got an auditor paid for myself to audit him, audit what he said, and I came here and defended myself and showed where he was not doing the work properly, where they said things and then couldn't back it up. An auditor in this country. I had to do that. So on the question of moving me off the committee, the government has the votes. Let them go ahead. I do object, though, Madam Speaker, to the fact that 3 councillors who act as ministers sometime, and if they act as ministers, I guess they sit in cabinet, or have so close connection as can act as minister, will be the members of this committee. Madam Speaker, if objection is taken of this member for being a member because I have matters before the Public Accounts Committee, I can defend those. I don't worry about the nation building. Let them say what they want. They can threaten anything, Madam Speaker. I help people. That's what I was elected to do. I brought it here. I explained it, and those didn't like it. Well, I was then what they are now. I had the members, and I'd done what I had to do to help people. That's what that was about. If I help somebody and they abused it, well, I can't say anything about that because I can't make people honest if they're not. But my job as well is if I see a case and I can help, go ahead and do it. And that's what I tried to do there, to help people, no matter whether they were PPM, whether they were PNA, or who they were, wherever they come from, UDP or whoever. I didn't care, Madam Speaker. That's been my, they were in existence then? I don't know if the C4C were in existence. They only came up later on. But some of the people, not the members in here, some of the people I'm talking about got help. I don't care who they were. I don't care. So blame me if you want, say that. But don't tell no lie on this man, Madam Speaker. You're talking about walking on the side, fighting side of me. That's what you're doing. So if they take objection to that, if I have those matters before the pact and can elucidate and explain and enlighten or speak the truth and defend actions and policies, and they say I'm conflicted, I don't know how I would be. Madam Speaker, bearing in mind that that is the way the pact operates all over the world. Then if I'm conflicted, Madam Speaker, I don't know how the new chairman will stomach 3 members being part of the executive in the manner they are, and then is now going to sit and they talk about my matters coming. What they're not talking about is their matters coming. And Madam Speaker, I couldn't do nothing wrong in the committee because the government always had the majority members. So what am I going to do wrong? Not even the chairman can get anything done if they don't want done because they have the majority. They have the majority members. Madam Speaker, I had every reason to deal with that Auditor General in the manner I did. Just look at the things he said and how he worded them. Do not know it was him, but he read them and it was him, he signed them. I don't really believe with him or that other guy, Martin Rubin, who we can deal with good and proper. They had to learn that there are people who will stand up and say, we believe that the civil service, look, they're human. They're humans. Yes, you can say they never done right. Anything can be improved upon. But you can say all the things that you say to make them look like they're worthless, they ain't no good. The same thing you can do with the politicians. But you can't do that with me. Thank God, Madam Speaker, I'm 60. Because if I were 35, it would be a whole lot different story. Hear what I tell you? It would be a whole lot different story. Today, I can get riled up, but I know when and how far to go and when to stop. That's what age does for you. Mouth them off good. Forgive. Never forget, I guess. Just ask the Lord for guidance. Madam Speaker, I have no more to say here. I haven't done anything wrong. And if the Premier brings something that I don't know about and they accuse me, then I reserve my right under the standing orders, Madam Speaker, to make a personal explanation. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the second elected member from the District of Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this motion. I suppose it's absolutely essential I do speak in my former capacity as chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Madam Speaker, privilege I held for some 2 years. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Premier in this motion. And I feel probably the best way for me to deal with it, to set out my feelings and my position, would be to read into the record the letter that I wrote to the Leader of the Opposition in June 2014. Madam Speaker, the difficulties difficulties and disagreements with the Leader of the Opposition with regard to what I perceive to be the attacks and remarks made by him with regard to the Auditor General are well known, so much so that they were highlighted in the press last summer, and there had been much discourse even within the Public Accounts Committee and at hearings with regard to it. Things really got to our heads last summer after some particularly, what I perceive to be disparaging remarks that were made publicly, that I really took it upon myself to write to the Leader of the Opposition to ask him and invite him to resign the position, because I felt that things had gotten to the point that they were untenable. With your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to read into the record the letter that I wrote.
Please proceed.
And it was dated June 25th, 2014. And it said, "Dear Mr. Bush, I'm writing to you in my capacity as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee in respect to the public statements made by you following the release of the Auditor General's most recent report entitled Management of Travel and Hospitality Expenditures. Following the release of this report, I have seen and heard you make a number of disparaging public comments on Cayman 27, Rooster, and most recently last Friday in the Finance Committee, that by any reasonable interpretation can only be seen as an attack on the Office of the Auditor General and are potentially slanderous. In my mind, your statements cast aspersions on the integrity and professionalism of the Auditor General and clearly demonstrate an inability to consider the reports and oversight of the Office of the Auditor General with any sense of objectivity. In fact, your bias makes it difficult for the committee to effectively engage with the Auditor General and exercise its constitutional mandate in examining government's use of public resources. From my perspective, your public comments clearly demonstrate that there are conflicts of interest on your part with respect to the Auditor General's report on travel and hospitality expenditures. I believe that our experience to date on the committee with other reports strongly suggests that these conflicts now cover anything to do with the Office of the Auditor General. In short, the present situation is untenable, and it is important that changes are made to allow the committee to function in an effective and objective manner. While I acknowledge that I have no power or authority to compel you, In the interests of good governance, I am writing to ask that you resign as a member of the Public Accounts Committee and allow the Legislative Assembly to elect another member of the opposition who can and will act in an objective and unbiased manner. I believe that such a step will allow the Public Accounts Committee to function as it is intended and is in the best interest of the people of the Cayman Islands whom we were elected to serve. Madam Speaker, do you require me to lay a copy of the letter with you, Sarge?
It's ordered.
Madam Speaker, following that letter, which I don't believe I ever had an official response from the Leader of the Opposition, I do know that in January 15, 2015, the Office of the Auditor General released a position paper, really, defending his independence and public reporting. And that came primarily as a result of, he certainly told me that the issues, the challenges that he faced with regard to these public comments, that he had to defend himself by putting out this report, this position paper regarding his independent work, the fact that it promotes good governance, transparency, and accountability in the use of public funds, and gives what I perceive to be a very comprehensive and succinct description of what his role, responsibilities are, and just how important it is that the Auditor General's office remain independent and free from any influences or threats. Now, Madam Speaker, I think in the Leader of the Opposition's response to the motion before us, he made a number of statements that I think bear some correction. And I would like to spend maybe the rest of my time speaking briefly to those issues. And first off, Madam Speaker, he spoke about the PAC being led by the opposition. And that, Madam Speaker, is generally true throughout the Commonwealth. That is a predominant way of operation and predominant way that public accounts committees operate in the Commonwealth, but it is not exclusive. There are, within the Commonwealth, a number of countries where the public accounts committees are led by the government bench as well. But I would agree with him that the best practice would be for that the Public Accounts Committee to be led by the opposition. And, Madam Speaker, that is what we will achieve as a result of this now, in my resignation, and the chair now being taken up by the member from Northside, and I'm happy to relinquish that position so that he may take it on. And truly, we will have what I perceive now to be as balanced a Public Accounts Committee as we can have. But it will also reflect to the composition of the House, in that the majority of members of the PAC will be members from the government bench. And that too generally is the way it operates in the Commonwealth. The Leader of the Opposition also made quite a bit of the fact that the remaining members are certainly on the government bench that are members of the Public Accounts Committee, are councillors, and from time to time we are appointed to act as temporary ministers, and possibly suggesting that we should not be there on that committee. But really, Madam Speaker, if you take a look at the composition of this House, with the exception of the first elected member from Bodden Town, there are no other members on the government bench who could possibly sit on the Public Accounts Committee if that were to follow through and be taken to its natural conclusion. Therefore, the entire Public Accounts Committee, bar one, would be made up of opposition members, and that too is untenable. And so I don't necessarily accept it that simply because we act as temporary ministers in here from time to time, that would preclude us from being effective members of the Public Accounts Committee. And so I don't consider the statement has a particular merit. I'm sorry, I should have referred to Mr. Eden as the first elected member of Bonta as the Deputy Speaker. And so, I mean, I think even with the Deputy Speaker, there would be questions as to whether he should be on a Public Accounts Committee. There were also a number of statements made with regard to the questions, and I believe a number of those papers were laid before and laid on the table of the House, Madam Speaker, with regard to questions that the Auditor General provides to the committee at the outset of the inquiries, the public inquiries that we have with regard to his reports. Now, Madam Speaker, those suggestions, those questions that are provided by the Auditor General are given to us at our invitation. It's not something he has forced on us or insisted that we have. What we asked him to do and what he has done for this committee from the outset is provide some leading questions for us to begin with when we are examining witnesses in terms of trying to elicit information and understanding and bring flavor out for the reports that he has prepared. There isn't a single member of that committee who is bound by those questions that he gives, and I know very rarely do we ever follow them, but maybe use them as a basis to focus in on areas of the report that need to be focused in on, and to provide that flavor and to elicit the type of information that the Public Accounts Committee would find relevant. So there is no real sense that the Auditor General is trying, or has been ever, trying to influence or direct the way that any public inquiry or public examination of his reports take place. Fourth matter that he raised or took issue with are the invoices that do come from the Auditor General. And, Madam Speaker, one of the orders of business every month on our agenda is to look at and examine invoices from his office and to query him and seek information from him, clarity from him as to the nature and content of the information and the items that he is charging us for. And one of the things we have implemented, Madam Speaker, is that wherever there are any third-party invoices, like for consultants or specialists which he has to hire in, he does produce invoices to the committee, and we do query him and examine those invoices at great length. And the Leader of the Opposition is aware of that because he has participated in and questioned the Auditor General from time to time with regard to those invoices. So, Madam Speaker, my view is that the motion before us is one that is necessary for the smoother operation of the Public Accounts Committee moving forward. I expressed to the Premier that although I was resigning as chair, that I would be happy to remain on as a member of that committee, because I do believe that I have a lot to contribute and can help the committee in discharging its responsibilities. I believe now that we will have a more balanced and workable committee, and one that will be most helpful in this Parliament holding the government accountable for the public resources that we entrust to them, and it will help us to hold them accountable and be more transparent in terms of accounting to the public and the people who put us here with regard to the resources that we give to the public service. Madam Speaker, these reports on public issues, public reports that are issued by the Auditor General from a Public Accounts Committee, it's never about getting somebody or getting back at anyone. The truth of the matter is, Madam Speaker, these reports identify very clearly issues and problems that exist within the government. And when I say the government, I mean within the civil service. And it is only human nature that when the light is shone on things and deficiencies are identified, people don't like it. But in my mind, Madam Speaker, and the way I've operated the Public Accounts Committee for the past 2 years, it is always about what can we do to improve things? What can we change? What can we do that is different to ensure that the things and the issues that have been highlighted, the deficiencies, and the things that have just gone wrong, what can we do differently that we ensure that these things never, ever happen to again? Madam Speaker, if we can accomplish that, if we can get change, if we can get a mindset within those who are charged with administering public resources, such that they treat things and account for them in accordance with principles of good governance, then we will have certainly accomplished our job. And that ultimately is where public accounts needs to be and the role that it should be playing. And we're there to support and to help the Auditor General to discharge his responsibilities and to ensure that he is not unnecessarily and unfairly maligned and attacked in any way. We're there to support, and he is there to support us in our work in discharging our responsibility to this Parliament and to the people of the Cayman Islands. And that is the way it should work. And with those few comments, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the debate and just indicate my support for it. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Final call. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I'll call on the mover, should he wish to exercise his right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm particularly grateful for the contribution of the recent erstwhile chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, which I believe has given a perspective that really only the chairman could offer. I, Madam Speaker, have not moved this motion without long and careful thought. As was indicated by the letter of June more than a year ago, the letter from the chairman inviting the leader of the opposition to resign. This is a train that's been coming for quite some time. We tried to avoid this particular result, but as I said, the recent actions and statements by the leader of the opposition convinced us, and certainly convinced me, that unless we wanted a completely dysfunctional Public Accounts Committee and an Office of the Auditor General which felt it was under siege, we needed to take this particular action. Madam Speaker, criticisms of what the government did in terms of the Constitution, the makeup of the Public Accounts Committee, have been made by the leader of the opposition. I will agree with him in this. It sure was an error of judgment on my part to have nominated him as a member of the committee. But Madam Speaker, we and I was I was seeking to be fair, and as leader of the opposition, I felt it was important that he be appointed to the committee. No, Madam Speaker. When I said, as I was quoted by the leader of the opposition to say, when I said that he was expecting too much, what he was proposing would have put 3 opposition members on the committee at the time. The second elected member for Georgetown was sitting on the opposition side of this House at the time that he was appointed as chairman of the committee. Madam Speaker, when he changed sides, our response was that the 4th elected member from Bordentown resigned in order that another opposition member could be appointed to the committee. And that is what transpired. With respect to the criticism that the committee should have been chaired by an opposition member, I say, Madam Speaker, and events that have transpired, in fact, the events which have led to this moment, have demonstrated what would have happened if the fox had been appointed to guard the hen house. Because what the committee was doing for the last almost 2.5 years, has been considering reports on the activities and projects of the previous administration led by the now leader of the opposition. And so, Madam Speaker, I have no doubt in my mind that given the circumstances and the relative positions of members in this House, that what we sought to do was the right thing. With regard to the criticism that councillors shouldn't sit on the Public Accounts Committee, the leader of the opposition's memory is incredibly short. For when he was premier, he had no less than 2 of his councillors sitting on Public Accounts Committee. In the persons of Mr. Dwayne Seymour and Mr. Elio Solomon.
They were never appointed ministers, nor were they ever
So,
in cabinet.
Madam Speaker, I really don't give much weight to those objections and criticisms by the honorable leader of the opposition. And so, Madam Speaker, I think all that needs to be said has been said. I'm not going to drag this matter out at all. And I just regret that it has come to this, but the government is doing what we think is in the best interest of good governance and of the Public Accounts Committee being able to continue to do and carry out its constitutional mandate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Last time, nothing said about what you spent.
The question is, be it therefore resolved that in accordance with paragraph 4 of Standing Order 80, the Legislative Assembly accepts the resignation of the 2nd elected member of Georgetown as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. Let me just pause there. Out of the abundance of caution, can I get an indication from the member from Northside that he accepts the nomination?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. And be it further resolved that the Legislative Assembly revokes the appointment of the Leader of Opposition and first elected member for West Bay from the Public Accounts Committee. And be it further resolved that the Legislative Assembly appoints the elected member from Northside as a member and chairman of the committee, and the second elected member from Georgetown as the deputy chairman of the committee. And second elected member from Georgetown, do you accept the nomination for the deputy chairman? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. I think the ayes have it.
Please, division, please.
Madam Clerk, please call a division.
Honorable Alden McLaughlin.
Aye.
Honorable Moses Kirkconnell.
Aye.
Honorable Kurt Tibbetts. Honorable Osmond Bodden. Honorable Wayne Panton. Honorable Marco Archer. Honorable Tara Rivers. Honorable Anthony Eden. Mr. Winston Connolly.
Aye.
Mr. Roy McTaggart.
Aye.
Mr. Joseph Hugh.
Aye.
Mr. Alva Saku.
Aye.
Honorable Keeper Bush.
Abstain.
Mr. Barney Bush.
No.
Captain Eugene Ebanks.
No.
Mr. Ezra Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Arden McLean.
Decision are as follows: 9 ayes, 3 noes, 1 abstention, and 4 absentees. The motion is carried. Recognize Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move the adjournment of this Honorable House until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
The question is that the Honorable House be now adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.